Well, I want to thank you, River, for coming on to my channel, Black Swan Finances.
Thank you
We've
for
had,
having me.
no problem. And so first of all, we'd like to, I want to introduce you to my audience. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into trading crypto, please?
Yeah. So I'm River. I run the Satoshi Sisters Discord group. I've been trading. I started trading when I was pregnant with my first son. So I live in Brazil, so I'm Australian, but I live in Brazil. I started trading because I needed a way to make some decent money to live in. Brazil's not exactly a cheap country to live in. So, yeah, so I started to learn a little bit about that. It was right before the 2017 bull run. So it was a really interesting time when I first got into the market. I bought some Bitcoin Cash at the time, and that was my first ever trade, and it was really crazy. So I didn't know really anything at that time. And then I started to learn a little bit about technical analysis, and I really, really liked the Elliott wave. I liked the being able to predict the market, being able to use mathematics and probability and all that kind of stuff. And so I stuck really, really deep into that. And it was probably about 2 years before my Elliott wave was really, really good, and I started really making some good money on trading. And so, yeah, that's
yeah, of course. And I guess one of the questions that comes to mind is that your group, it's Satoshi Sisters.
That's right.
So you teamed up with Lisa Edwards, who is actually the biological sister of Dr. Craig Wright. Can you tell us a little bit about how that dynamic came upon? How did you guys sync up?
Well, Lisa's actually my mother, so I've known Lisa my whole life. Yes, yep. She's the one who actually got me interested in trading. And, when I was pregnant with my first son and I needed something to do, she kind of helps me out in a way there to get started. But yeah, the whole thing about the Satoshi Sisters is that when we decided to make this group at the start of this year, we wanted something like a really cool name. And so my husband, when we're brainstorming names, and he goes, "Oh, why don't you call yourself the Satoshi Sisters?" And I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, it's kind of like the Scissor Sisters, but way cooler." And it kind of made sense because, my mum and I we're close in age, as close as you can be as mother and daughter. And we've always kind of felt more like sisters than, mother and daughter itself. So we rolled with it, and it really worked. So.
Okay, so Craig Wright is your uncle?
Yes.
Oh my God, I never knew this. That's amazing. Well, that kind of threw me off a little bit, but because I'm in shock. It's amazing. I guess you two don't look so. You and your mom don't look so separate in age. So I just assumed that you were friends from Australia. And but anyway, that's amazing. Yeah, I think that people are gonna like this video. So now maybe we can get into the crypto market. Because that's what you do, you're a technical analyst, and I've been following you for quite some time now, and I paid attention to your calls, especially on BSV, and they've been correct. So maybe we can start with BSV. I have my people asking me. You said we were going to 90, which it did happen. We're about that right now. It's $85 maybe. Yeah. So do you think we're actually bottoming on
I do. The chart looks amazing. It's honestly, the BSV chart is really, really interesting because out of the whole history of me watching, over the past 4 years, these cryptocurrency charts, and even when other cryptos are in an uptrend, they're really corrective wave patterns, and so you can still predict the uptrend even though it's corrective, and it's really, really bizarre that finally we're seeing a bullish asset just by looking at the charts. Just by the look of the charts, we're finally seeing one that's in a bullish phase, in a really nice bullish momentum. We are, in my opinion, really, really bottoming now, and we can still go down again to that 60, 70 range, just tip off. But I really have a feeling that we might hold this 80 range and start moving higher soon. So another really important thing about the BSV chart is that there's not a lot of resistance. So the chart, we're stuck between, basically 50 and 250. And in that zone where big high volatility jumps up and down, so there's not a lot of resistances, to break through once we start moving up. So I do expect, quite a bit of volatility for BSV in the next coming months. And I think the next 12 months are going to be really, really interesting for BSV.
That's amazing because I think what you did was a Fibonacci analysis of the uptrend in BSV, and you said it was going to, because I've been following you really closely because I have BSV, and that's my biggest position, full disclosure. So if it's not like my only position, honestly, I really don't have anything else except for like a few cents. Anyway, so I saw in May, I remember CoinGeek when we were in CoinGeek Toronto. I was there in Toronto, and I just landed and I saw that BSV was $250 or something like that. And ever since that happened, you said we were going back to 90. So I didn't want to believe. Yeah. But can you tell us about the Fibonacci analysis that you did on BSV?
Yeah, so I use Elliott Wave. So primarily I use the Fibonacci helps with the Elliott Wave. So it's actually a really, really big part of the Elliott Wave that I do. And so when we reached that 250 zone, and then we came back down and we hit it again. We did that double top, on most exchanges, it was like double 250 twice. So we had actually completed a really nice 5-wave pattern there. So it needed to correct. There was no way around it. And I remember in that video that I posted, it was right when we hit that top. And I said, we're going to probably spend the next couple of months sideways. And then eventually, probably we get to that under 100 zone and hopefully we can bottom around there. And I think I posted that back in June. And
you did.
I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit faster, not so extended as an extended correction. I was thinking maybe the end of August we would be kind of, starting to move up and be done with it. And we just didn't really get to those levels that we needed to get to yet. And I had everyone in my ears saying, no, it's gonna moon from here. It's gonna move up soon. And I think, no, it's not complete. It's really not done yet. But what is actually really interesting is that this is accumulation phase, right? So we're sitting here since basically June in this accumulative phase. And you can see that on the indicators on the charts, like using volume indicators and volume momentum indicators, can see that it's clearly accumulating. And so what that does is right now with BSV, we've essentially had from when it was released until now, which is about 320 days or so of pure accumulation in this 50, we did dip down to 38 when we first released, but, between 38 and 250, we really have just been accumulating this entire time. So even on the big stronger moves up, we've moved, 200%, 250% or whatever, the entire phase is still accumulative. We haven't really broken out of a range yet. So we're still building up that rocket fuel, as I like to call it, to be able, when we break out of that zone, to be quite momentous and to be quite volatile and really, really strong. The accumulation, what it does, because we've had such a long period of accumulation, we're able to sustain a bullish run. We've had almost a year of accumulation now. So when we eventually do break out of this range, we're going to be able to sustain potentially, a 6 month to a 1 year bull market, let's say.
Okay, and about BSV again. So I think that you're saying that looking at your tweets and your charts, that we'll see $500 to $600 maybe by the end of the year. Do you still think that? Because,
yeah, I think that's certainly possible. And for me, once we break out of that 250 kind of range, I think that next step would be 500, 600. Given that is able to hold and we're not, we don't dip too further beyond that, the next steps for me would be like 900 and then 1,400 as next target. So hopefully within the next 6 to 12 months, we can start to see those levels.
Amazing. Now onto the fundamentals of BSV, because we've talked only really just charts. Yeah. And so I saw you were tweeting about the last CoinGeek, which just ended a couple of days ago. What are you excited about regarding that conference, the projects that you like, or what's on your radar?
I was really excited to watch that conference. I actually wanted to be there that time, but I wasn't able to make it this time, but I'll definitely be in London. So hopefully I'll see you there.
I think I'll be there,
Yeah, so I was so excited to see the developments of the projects. There were so many amazing things. The advancements with, Money Button was really, really big. The advancements with Uptime SV, oh my gosh, it was really, really interesting to see, and especially all these new developers coming in and showing things that we'd never seen before. I was really, really excited. Oh gosh, what are they called? I can't even remember. I just tweeted about them the other day.
Kodo?
That's a really, really bad of me.
Isn't it CODO, something like that?
Yeah, the Kodo, they were great too. They were amazing. They looked like such nice guys, really, really excited. I heard from Jack that they actually applied to be on Cambrian SV, but they didn't make it through to that round. So they would have already been really developing and had a working product if they had have done that. But Pixel Wallet. Did you see the Pixel Wallet video?
I haven't seen that specific video, but yeah, tell me about it. It's like face recognition, or what is it?
Yeah, they do payments instead of, and it just got me thinking, because it's something that I'd said to Craig in a message a long time ago. I said, I was at a festival one time and I said, how annoying is it when you've got a phone and it doesn't have any battery, or your cards, you lose your cards or something like that, and you don't have any way to pay, no way to get home, no way to do anything like that. So if we had a system where we could use, biometric data, whether it be fingerprints or facial recognition to complete a payment, I think that's really advanced technology and something really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. So moving on from BSV, because you also trade the other coins.
Yeah.
I mean, we can understand that you are bullish on BSV, but I've seen your charts on BTC, and you're mostly bearish. So maybe you can tell us why you're bearish on BTC.
Yeah, so BTC is an interesting one. Back when it was $3,000, I was a little bit crazy, and I said to the guys, I said it's going to 10K. And no one believed me. Everyone thought I was crazy, and I was nuts. And I made a prediction, I think back in March, that it would end up at around $11,333, which was the 0.5 fib retrace of the entire trend, which is classic for a corrective wave. As I mentioned, we're looking at corrective waves a lot of the times now. So, and then it ended up hitting the 0.618, which is just one level above about that, between 13,000, 14,000, depending on the exchange. So. We hit that perfect level, the 0.618, a little bit higher than my prediction, so I was a little bit off there. But now, since then, instead of being able to move up and create like a continuance, so what you look for in a bullish trend is when you get the dips and the corrections within the trend, you want to hold some certain levels. You don't want to go out too far past resistances and supports and all that kind of stuff, but you also want to be able to maintain the momentum as well. And so what we did essentially, and you'll see a tweet of mine that I called the BTC top on the day. So once we hit that top and I started to see that momentum decreasing, so the bull run continued up, and I was thinking around even 10K, I thought, nah, it's over soon, guys, it's over soon, and then we ended up going up to around 14K. And that day I said, this is it. We're going to start getting distribution now. The bullish momentum is decreasing significantly. You can see that people are selling. You can see that, we've got big whales, offloading their bags basically. And that kind of thing is what I look for when I'm looking at analyzing the market. And then ever since then, we've hit the perfect zones that I've pointed out to the guys. So for now, I'm still waiting on a little bit more down, but I am open to the idea that, if we can push up to, maybe 9,000 to 10,000 short term. But overall for me, the trend is very bearish. And I believe that we'll start to head down towards the all-time low and eventually break that, end of year, start of next year.
Well, that's it's a contrary to what most people are saying now because of the halvening.
Yeah.
You don't think that the halvening is going to trigger a panic or something?
I think it will trigger a panic. See, that's an interesting way to put it, because what the halvening will potentially do is, if the price does continue to decrease, it will no longer remain profitable for the miners. And then what happens at the halvening is that the coin reward splits in half again. So there's not going to be much incentive for miners to stay on board for BTC.
Yeah, it's going to shock a lot of people if it actually happens. Because honestly, I've just been watching some videos of, I guess, the mainstream. If you think about the mainstream, they're hyping the halvening.
And they're doing they do that usually at the tops too. You'll find that the last bull run when we hit 20K, that's all that people were doing. They were just spreading this bullish vibe, and what ended up happening is you end up with a whole heap of bag holders. So now what I've been saying to my guys in Discord is that this was the opportunity to sell your bags. If you were holding onto bags since 2018 and you didn't get a chance to sell them, or you're in such a loss, that this was the opportunity to get rid of them all. So and at least salvage some of what you lost, or not have such a huge loss, basically.
If this happens, I guess the entire crypto market, including the altcoins, are going to crash really hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, a lot of them don't have much utility either. I think that there's definitely time for a cleanup of the market as a whole. I think that we'll start to see a lot of investigations coming across for a lot of the altcoins, and potentially some of them shut down before they even reach zero. So I think that, there's definitely some crackdowns coming, and it's going to be a really interesting 12 months.
Well, that's that's quite a shocker because like I'm telling you, in mainstream, people are hyping the halvening and it's going to happen. Alt season is just around the corner. But anyway, moving on. Just to close up the video, because we've been here for a good 16 minutes already.
Yeah.
And, so I guess do you think that your uncle is Satoshi Nakamoto? Do you think?
Of course. Absolutely, I do. I don't think that there's any way that you can doubt it. I think the last time I saw Craig, I would have been about 15, maybe not much older than 15. And he came over to our house, and he came there with Dave, actually, Dave Kleiman, and they were talking about this crazy internet money. And I was 15. I had no idea what they were talking about at the time. And all I remember is them talking about this, internet money and gambling online and all this kind of stuff, because at the time he had, I don't know, a gambling site or something like that worked in Australian. I don't even know the details of it, but I just remember that conversation with internet money. And it was just so bizarre to me at the time that there's no doubt in my mind that he's not Satoshi.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your time, River. You have your trading group. So can you maybe you can invite people to your website. How can they find you?
Yeah. So my Twitter is @Riverish333. You can find a link to the Discord on my Twitter.
Okay. And do you have any other closing thoughts, or?
Just be safe in the market. I don't think that you should really take anyone's advice, not even mine, to heart. You got to really do your own research, your own due diligence, and always protect your assets. So that's my biggest thing. Always protect your assets.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.